was, and this goes back to, again, the curiosity and the openness. It goes right back to that of you kind of expressing that we're in a space, and you have to feel the space and you have to connect with the space, and basically kind of almost prompting to be open to what the trees, the woods, the forest, the world was saying in that moment. You asked me to listen. So again, if you take my journey, sorry to go backwards, but if you take that journey, like again, you're constantly reinforcing that you need to be curious, you need to be open. You had asked me to be open. So we sat on the log, and I just thought it was just a really beautiful opportunity to have no time constraint, to have no barriers around kind of sitting there and letting a conversation kind of occur really naturally. And also just, again, listening, not just to each other, but to the weather, to the wind, to the sky, to the trees. I thought that was just a really lovely reinforcement of the things that I was trying to think about and do and be in my time before getting to eupepsia. So it was more than the actual conversation. It was just kind of you actually insisting on an environment where I could be curious and open and thinking about things in a way that I probably had never voiced or even thought about.
Welcome to Connecting with Coincidence. I am your host, Bernie Beitman, and one of my favorite things in synchronicities is when they're shared. A lot of you have had shared coincidences, and that means you've had a coincidence with someone else, and you share that same coincidence. It happens fairly regularly, but what doesn't happen is that the two people talk about their experiences of that coincidence, because I'm me and you're you, and that doesn't mean we're going to have the same experience, and we don't. So this is a way of encouraging you to share your own experiences with somebody else with whom you've had a similar experiences. And my book, Life-Changing Synchronicities, has several of them in there, but again, I haven't talked with the other person about it as directly as we're going to do today. And this one looks like you could fall under manifestation, or at least a part of it. I mean, people use that word in a lot of ways, but I went to a retreat, a wellness center, because I needed a break from what I was doing. And it's 3 hours from Charlottesville, drove there, and I wanted to do some dancing there. But they have a speaker, but to play some music through, but I found that out. But how to get people together to dance? So I had that idea in mind, and that's the beginning of our story. Our guest today is Shana Owens. Shana is the former chief of staff, former and head of organizational effectiveness at Omidyar Network, a foundation committed to shaping the path of digital technology toward positive, inclusive future for us all. Man, do we need some changes in AI technology, man. Boy. And these are the people in this, it's a nonprofit, are all get together and try to figure out where to give their money. And that's part of the problem. They have to decide. In this capacity, she worked with the CEO, board of directors, and executive leadership to define strategic and operational priorities, lead process and performance improvement efforts, and manage organizational change. It sounds like a big job to me, and it was, and it had its issues. Prior, Shana was an associate partner at IBM, serving as, again, chief of staff, advising and supporting the general manager of IBM's $1 billion U.S. federal service business. She received her MBA with a concentration on organizational development and behavior from George Washington University and her master's degree in cognitive psychology from Claremont Graduate University. Shana, great to see you again.
Thanks so much, Bernie. I appreciate you inviting me. I'm so happy to be talking to you about this today.
Me too. Me too. Um, so, one of the principles of increasing coincidences is you do something out of the ordinary. And going to Eupepsia, it was out of the ordinary for both of us. Like I'd never been there, and you're in Northern Virginia, and that's even further for you to go than it was for me, three hours from Charlottesville. So we had to go, and you were meeting an old friend, Kim. I hadn't seen her for a while, and this is a place for you to get together.
Mhm.
So that's why you were going, and I didn't know you. You didn't know me, and somehow we were standing outside the office area, and I get introduced to you, and I say, Shana, Shana, and I go like that, just because I know the name, and I didn't know anybody named Shana particularly, because how did you get that name?
It's funny. I have two sisters who have very lovely, I would consider traditional names, and my dad decided it was his turn to to name me, and had watched a television show where there was a woman named Shayna, and he said, "I love that name. That is going to be my daughter's name."
All right, so I heard that, and I was standing outside the office with Kim, and I started singing by Mir Bis Duchesne, which is an old song from the 30s, and it's a Yiddish song. It's all done in Yiddish. It's a Jewish term, Shana, and Shana means "by me you are beautiful." I could use another word other than beautiful, but that's the way I heard it. By by mere bist by me you are beautiful. And I started singing that a little bit, and then Kim starts chiming in, singing it as sung by the Andrews Sisters. So I'm just amazed that Kim knows that song. It was from the 1950s, and there you are, kind of knowing what the word meant. But hearing the song from both of us was like, what was that experience like for you, for Kim and me to be singing that?
Well, I mean, I knew my name meant beautiful. At least that's what I had heard. And when you told me that's what it meant and that it was in this song, I knew I wasn't going to know the song. And I knew that my dad probably hadn't heard the song either. So when Kim starts singing an old Yiddish song, I looked at her and I thought, like, am I like, should I actually know the song? I clearly didn't know it, but I was wondering, it was more self-consciousness actually, like, is this something I should know? Um, yeah, really interesting experience. And I kind of looked at her wondering how in the heck that she had come across an old Yiddish song. And that's when she shared that it was an Andrew Sisters version that she used to listen to with her father when she was young. So
So,
yeah,
we're here. We're talking about both sides of the thing, and I knew this from years ago, just liking the song, and it
yeah,
had such a nice rhythm to it. By me or bis to shame, but do da do do, and it's like it just stayed with me, and I liked the phrase, so that's how it stuck with me. So there, Kim and me singing the same song, but different eras.
yeah,
And you're saying, well, it's about me. I don't know that song particularly. So it's kind of like maybe I should. Well, you do now.
yeah, that's
And
right.
so it got delivered. It got
Yeah,
delivered. So I take the opportunity, and this is part of manifestation. You've got to be able to like ask. You've got to see what you want and then see the possibility in what you're seeing as perhaps delivering what you want. And I wanted to do some dancing. So I said, "Hey, maybe let's dance tonight." And Kim says, I'll do the playlist, which just blew me out because to be to be able to get somebody to do the playlist is not that easy. Uh, just who knows how to do playlists. So how did you react when she said, I can do the playlist?
Honestly, I didn't think anything of that at all. I'm wondering if that's because it wasn't in my mind to have a dance party, but it was in your mind to have a dance party. And so that's why the playlist maybe was more significant for you. For me, it was just like, okay, Kim, I'm going to go lay in the stone chair in the hot tub room. You can make a playlist, but you can make a playlist. It was not on my radar at all in terms of something that I guess it didn't create any meaningful recognition in my mind when
Well,
when she
that's
said that.
important part of all this
Yeah,
is what hits and what doesn't. But
right.
the fun of it is trying to see, I'm here,
Yeah,
but how are you reacting? And I never got to ask you about how you're reacting because
yeah,
it was on your radar to have a
yeah,
dance. Who's this guy who wants to
yeah.
dance? Anyway.
I'm like, that's really nice of you, Kim. You go ahead and make that playlist.
Yeah, so that's what the guy wants.
Yeah.
So Kim says, let's put a playlist together. And I knew the Joanne, who was the kind of boss of the place,
Mhm.
had told me they had a speaker, and I I said, "Hey, we're going to do a dance tonight. Can you put the Where do you put the speaker?" And I loved that she put it in the gym.
Yeah,
It's like high school. It was
yeah.
like at the
It was a
speak
high school dance.
as a high school dance, a speaker in the high school dance.
Yeah.
So I'm out there dancing, and there's like four or five other people around there. It was hard to get anybody else to dance. I was moving. You were, I don't know, playing with the weights or something.
I,
Uh,
shooting hoops. I was shooting hoops.
you shooting hoops. But we were all there listening to music. And it was in the gym and it was high school. And one of my favorite things was the dances in the high school gym. In eighth grade, we had noonday dancing and they stopped it after a while, but it was really fun. So that was, again, something I was looking for that you were then part of
Mhm,
by having your name, Shana,
mhm,
um, connect me with Kim and the playlist
mhm,
so that you have to, if you want something to happen, you got to like act. You got to
mhm,
do it. You can't just sit there. And
mhm,
then stuff has to happen, like Kim having oh, I can do the playlist like that. She could do the playlist. So we got a playlist together and we did some dancing and I don't know. I had a good time, and uh, I, other people were a little awkward and trying to looking around and trying to, when you come to a dance, you're not used to it. But if you're not used to it, you don't know how to do it. But I'm used to it, so turn the music on, I'll start moving,
We
and
have to
that's
share one detail about eupepsia, which is that it is alcohol free. So a lot of us who grew up dancing needing a cocktail were not able to do so in that moment. So it was a little bit awkward. But I think again, knowing how important it was to Bernie and knowing that Bernie kind of wanted to do it, it kind of that's what pulled us into that gym.
oh, that's good. Anything more you can tell me about that? Because I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think I mean, again, I think if you just separate it out from this coincidence and just think about people dancing, going out, going to clubs, it's a party. You have alcohol, you lose that inhibition, right? Dancing, I think, can be freeing, but I think sometimes, obviously, it's exposing yourself. And so we were at this wellness retreat, lovely retreat, much needed, but there's no alcohol. And so sometimes I think you get in your head, you start to think, I don't know these people. I'm like clearly not in the club, I'm not in the bar, but this man wants me to dance and everyone's dancing. And how do we do that? So you saw, I think, a little bit of wanting to dance with Bernie. You saw a little bit of the what are we doing? We're in a gym and a wellness center. You saw a little bit of like these are strangers. Do I want to dance in a way that exposes a little bit of me in front of So I think you got a lot, but I think again, if you look at it with respect to this shared coincidence or this coincidence that on your end, and you correct me if I'm wrong, you manifested what it is you wanted when you got there, and all these people that may or may not have been inclined to do that thing did the thing. So it's kind of it's a coming from, I think, someone like me who's only stepping into their willingness and openness to kind of experience the world in this way where you're talking about synchronicities and coincidences and serendipity and all those fun things. I come in kind of being a little bit, or at least having been a little bit of a skeptic. But I think what we're kind of highlighting here is like you were able to put into the space what you wanted, and you literally saw it come back, even if you consider the fact that there were maybe some small barriers for other folks wanting to be in that space. So I think it's just very interesting, the power of putting that out there.
That's great. Oh, I'm so glad we're doing this, Shana.
Good.
To to be able to see that from the other side, because I was just
Yeah.
that, and that being like that, hey, let's dance, let's go,
Mhm.
was enough to have people do it, even with the reluctance that we saw,
It's still
and
powerful. Yeah.
it's still able to do that. That's why I was kind of curious. The next day, you remember Jeremy, who's the farm guy,
Yeah.
who led the circuits in the morning at the gym,
Yeah.
and also led some hikes on the Appalachian Trail. That's why he said to me when I was going on the trail, he says, "Who else have you gotten to go on this?" And I said, "What makes you think I've getting anybody to go on this?" "Well, you got all those people to dance." Yeah. And I didn't even, that's what I didn't see,
Yeah.
that they did it because of my enthusiasm in, I mean, see, it still blows my mind here that, because I was just being like that,
Yeah.
and it had an effect,
Hmm.
so that, I mean, how do you think the experience was for you and for other people being out there on this dance floor that Bernie helped create?
See, this is where I feel like our depending on each individual's openness
Yes.
to experience a coincidence or a synchronicity or a serendipity. I'm gonna have to talk to you about that because I'm using all three words, and I actually am like not sure if I can how independent they are, or how, I guess, how much they're the same or synonyms of each other. But we can talk about that later. Um, the openness, I think, determines how of the feeling in general in the moment. I think, again, coming in as somebody who's maybe only just now starting to be more open to, I think, the universe, the energies, if you want to, call it that. I think it's more meaningful to someone like you who's been studying it and thinking about it and really documenting it for a very, very, very long time. I think on the other end, if you talk to somebody who is not a believer in whatever this is, and that coincidences are just that coincidences, you move on, they happen. I don't think the feeling is going to be at all powerful or meaningful or moving. So I think, to answer your question in a very long way, apologies for getting off track, that for you, I think the feeling is maybe a little bit stronger. I think for someone like me, it's probably like I'm noticing more. I recognize it, but it's not as meaningful yet. And then for maybe somebody who's not even on the same page as what we're talking about, could have been anybody in that room, may have thought that was just an awkward dance party I went to. You know what I mean? I think it's very individual.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking. But
Yeah.
I like it that that was an awkward dance party I went to. I like that one because I think it was awkward, and yet I still had the impression that
Mhm.
it was a little different than what would have happened had they just been hanging around. So it was of interest, even
Yeah.
if there was some awkward. That's my guessing, but I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know
Yeah.
that.
I'll just go with my experience. I thought that that was something that I could recognize. I would have thought maybe awkward dance party, say last year. This year, again, given I think some of the work I'm trying to do and some of the just kind of purpose seeking that I've been like on a quest for the last several months, I'm noticing a lot more. And because I'm noticing a lot more and I'm paying a little bit more attention and I'm doing my best to be a lot more present and intentional with what I do, I see the value of those moments a little bit more than I would have a year ago. I see how even me sitting in this chair talking to you right now is like kind of this amazing opportunity that I wouldn't have had we not kind of come into contact and have a conversation in the way that we did. And I find value. I find value in that in a way that I know I would not have, say,
So
last
what?
year because of my
uh,
curiosity. I think I chalk it up to like I am more curious today than I was a year ago.
Boy, I'm so glad to hear that
Mhm.
this dance party coincidence thing, I'll call it, was a part of your continuing to open up to your curiosity to the world around you. It was
100%.
And I'll say, accelerated your interest because now you have my book and you're looking through that. You're raising important questions about meaningful coincidence, serendipity, and synchronicity. You're
Mhm.
curious now about trying to understand this. So
Yes.
for you, for me, it was like, okay, I gotta went out there, I gotta be able to dance and move around. That's what I wanted to do. That's that's really all I was doing. It was like I just
Mhm.
didn't want to just sit around. I wanted to dance. So for you, the whole thing, awkward dance and all, was still part of a process of opening you up,
Mhm.
making you more open and more curious,
Yes.
which leads to our having a conversation. But the dance party wasn't enough to do this conversation. This There was something else that happened uh, that led to this. I don't know. I just really liked you almost from the beginning. I liked the vibe. I don't know. You have different names for it, but there was something about you that felt good to me. So we 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 got to talking.
Yeah. And so I guess there's something else there here, I feel like. So you talked a little bit about manifestation earlier. You've only used that word I think twice, but you wanted to dance and you got to dance.
Right.
There's that, right? That's very interesting, but let's put that over here. I think for me, I'm the value or the meaning that I'm kind of creating is I went to this place that I wouldn't have ever gone before because I was again more curious to go. I struck up a conversation with you because I mean, in a normal situation, I probably would have been like, I'm gonna go read in my room. I don't really want to talk to anybody, but like, you know what? Let me be more open to the universe and the world, and had an interesting conversation with you, which then led to a dance party, which then led to a hike, which then led to me being here today, right? And so for me, I'm the value of this. I feel interaction is that I'm going down this road or I'm taking this journey that like I otherwise would have literally said, I'm not going on that journey. I'm going to stay home. But now I'm on this cool like path to like getting to know you and getting to understand this very interesting thing about kind of universal consciousness, which is so fascinating as part of my own journey that I'm on. So I'm looking at it as events that then are tracking to something that I may not know what, but that journey is very interesting. I feel like what you were talking about is really more about the manifestation of like what it is I want and how do I make it come to fruition. How do you are those two things in the same plane? Although they're different I guess means to an end, they're different goals, but do they still sit, I guess, in this space of synchronicity and coincidence?
By they, shorten what you mean by the two different things there.
So manifestation and gosh, how do I shorten what I just described, which is like a what will be, so long as you're open to what will be. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, that's you're talking about the journey
The journey.
of openness and
Yes.
looking more for synchronicity, serendipity, and the dance party was part of your journey. It continued to open you up because you did some weird things for you. You
Yeah,
you you didn't just isolate. You
correct.
you listened to me singing Shane by Miss Duchesne. You went to the dance party and were a little awkward, but you were still there. You were still on the gym floor and
Yeah,
you were moving, and that's
yeah,
dance.
yeah,
Dance is movement. So this was part of your opening up that you were doing before, and then
right,
this is yet perhaps a wider opening than usual for
correct.
you to have this happening. So this is a photograph or a little movie of
Hmm.
you, part of your journey of opening.
Yes,
And I like to think it's popped you up some levels of curiosity and
yeah,
openness,
yep,
which is what you're looking for. So in a
right.
way, you help manifest all this by your desire to want to keep being more open.
Mm,
It's a more general kind of thing. So you were open to being open is a simple way of saying it. And
got it.
and that's so it's they do very much fit together.
So my manifestation just looks different than what you were. Yours
Well,
was very tangible.
mine was tangible and clear.
Yeah,
Yours is I'm open to more experiences, so bring them on.
there you go. Yeah,
Uh,
very interesting way of thinking about that. Yeah, they're both manifestations ultimately.
yeah, and and the key thing is you have to have it in mind and then seize the opportunity. You got
Mm,
to like people have plenty of opportunities, but when they don't act, I call it a non-moving violation.
mm,
As opposed to a moving violation when you're driving your car. It's a non-moving. When you don't move, when something is there that you're looking to have happen, you're
mm,
violating your respect for your own evolution.
mm. Wow, that's powerful. So that's really interesting. I don't think I've ever thought about it like that. That you're really ultimately you're stunting your own growth, whether or not you recognize it or not.
Yep,
Mm.
yep. If I make a little dance out, I call it taking a chance on chance. You know, just being chancy. Uh,
Yeah.
it's that's a funnier way of saying the same thing, but I, in your life, became part of a process of generally wanting to be more open.
Yeah.
And that's how they began to fit together. What you saw with me with the dance is that I kind of do this stuff without even thinking about it anymore.
Yeah.
It's like I get it in mind. I mean, writing a book is a manifestation. It's like having a podcast is like having a manifest. You get this idea and then you do it. And one of my favorite manifestation versions was imagining like hitting a first pitch for a home run, and I did it in a playoff game. I really wasn't much of a home run hitter, but I was the first batter, the first pitch, and we won that game. When you do
Wow.
that, when you hit the home run, you know that when you hit the first pitch for a home run, and the guys, the other guys are saying, "What?"
Of the game, the first pitch of the game.
First pitch at the bottom of the first inning. We were a
Oh
home
my
team.
God. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
That's that's cool. And the thing about our friend at Pepsi, he had better stories than I had, and
Mm,
that's what was so That's so much. I'd tell him a great story like that. He'd have a better one.
Yeah.
And it was just so much fun swapping the stories with him. That's part of the way we got to know each other through
Yeah.
these sports stories. So, yeah, so that's him. So what happened with us
Mhm.
is that we got to know each other better, and we're talking and having a good time. And I said, "Hey, let's go out and go for a hike." Um, and we went past the tree house, so
Mhm.
you could see it, and I showed you around in the tree house thing up there. And I said, "Well, why don't we just you found a little place over here for us to sit?" And you said you like this log or that log, and I like the bigger log, and we sat down. And we had such a good time. I did. I think you did, sitting on that log.
Mhm.
What was, tell us about your experience just being sitting there with me on the log.
See, so let's go back just a tiny bit where we first approached the cabin, the logs. Um, I think what was intriguing was, and this goes back to again the curiosity and the openness, it goes right back to that of you kind of expressing that we're in a space and you have to feel the space and you have to connect with the space and basically kind of almost prompting to be open to what the trees, the woods, the forest, the world was saying in that moment. You asked me to listen. So again, if you take my journey, I sorry to go backwards, but if you take that journey, like again, it's you're constantly reinforcing that you need to be curious, you need to be open. You had asked me to be open. So we sat on the log and I just thought it was just a really beautiful opportunity to have no time constraint, to have no barriers around kind of sitting there and letting a conversation kind of occur really naturally. And also just, again, listening, not just to each other, but to the weather, to the wind, to the sky, to the trees. I thought that that was just a really lovely reinforcement of the things that I was trying to think about and do and be in my time before getting to eupepsia. So it was more than the actual conversation. It was just kind of you actually insisting on an environment where I could be curious and open and thinking about things in a way that I probably had never voiced or even thought about.
Boy, it's so wonderful hearing your side of it, Sheena, and that's again why I'm doing this because
Mhm.
it's an opening for each of us about the other and
Mhm.
about ourselves. Seeing seeing me from your side, from your perspective, and
Mhm.
you seeing you from the way I see you
Mhm.
are the kinds of conversations that synchronicity can accelerate.
Mhm.
And that's why when I was in the woods a couple of months ago, I came up with this idea is to do just what we're doing.
Mhm.
And to know the mind of the other person is crucial for the future of humanity.
Mhm.
People get caught up in their own minds so much, and synchronicity becomes a shared synchronicity, a way of. So when I was telling you, I didn't remember. I just told you what I was doing
Mhm.
and asked you to do it, which is like the trees, the breeze,
Mhm.
the feeling. There's the space here. It's got energy in it. The trees have that can be funny sometimes.
Mhm.
They want to communicate with us. And I was just saying that because I think that, and I didn't even remember telling you that. But for you, that was very important because it
Mhm.
helped you open up in the way that I knew how to open up,
Mhm.
up in the trees.
Yeah.
So, so thank you for telling me that part of it, because I didn't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I want to throw out again, and I think it's on purpose for a very purposeful reason. I I think I had worked out that morning, or I think I had hiked that morning. I don't remember what I had done that morning, or gone on a run. But in the moment before I left, I didn't want to go. I didn't want to go. I didn't want to go on a hike at that moment. But I was like, you should go on the hike. Why are you saying no? Like you're in Eupepsia. What else do you have to do? Like I didn't have I like what else was I gonna do except sit around and wait for lunch? Like, and I had to tell myself, I'm like, Shana, like stop not wanting to be a part of whatever it is. So I said, all right, let's go. Let's do it. So I think that's again, it's this idea of, and going back to your comment about, I think it's a very powerful one as well about getting to know each other or understand each other, and like the larger consciousness is critical for humanity. Knowing that people like me and others, I'm sure, are very quick to say no. I don't want to. I don't want to. Luckily, I feel like I'm moving a little bit more into like, I know you don't want to, but who cares about your feelings right now? Like, do the thing, take the chance. And I'm doing it more and more. But like, how do you think about all of the people who are obviously still in that space of I don't want to? How much does your openness and curiosity and willingness to create these synchronicities and coincidences make up for the rest of us who are literally shutting the door on it?
Wow.
I don't know.
Well, that's what I'm doing, Shana.
Yeah.
And that's my job is to like open the door here. And the idea of opening the door is really important part of my book
Yeah.
because I knocked on a bunch of doors and great coincidences happened.
Hmm.
It just great. So
Yeah.
let's pause for a minute about
Sure.
definitions. Meaningful coincidence is an
Mhm.
umbrella term that includes serendipity and synchronicity.
Okay.
And the and those terms overlap, uh, but they're both usually involved with a mental event paralleling an external or objective event.
Hmm.
I thought of it, it happens out there. The most
Hmm.
common thing being I think of somebody and they call me. I haven't heard from them for a while. So that is the most common one.
Okay.
Uh, but that's thinking of something and then it happens. So serendipity is usually around like discovery, finding new ideas, um, learning something, or getting a help from somebody in a kind of unexplained way. It's kind of lucky accidents is a name for them, uh, that something happens that you're not looking directly for, but it happens because you're looking for something else and that thing
Mm.
shows up. But the key idea is that you're looking. All of this is the curiosity thing that's opening up in you. And so serendipity is more about outcomes in things and ideas, where synchronicity is more about spirituality, psychological development, and interpersonal relationships.
Mm.
But they overlap interpersonal relationships because what do we call it? What happened with us? It was like serendipity, synchronicity. I don't know. A set of meaningful coincidences is what
Hmm.
I prefer to call it. You
Yeah.
are looking to be open, and here you get this guy who says, "Hey, Shana, open it up." Hey,
Basically.
open it up, Shana. No, I didn't,
Cool.
say it quite that way, but that's what it ended up being. So I became a teacher for you. I became a guide for you.
Mhm.
Uh, Unbeknownst to either of us, that I was playing that role with you. I was just having a good time with you, which was part of it. I think a definition of play is having fun and learning something.
Yeah.
And so you were fun to play with, is what it was for me. So,
Yeah.
and
No, it's great. And but you're helping me understand that actually, again, I really until now didn't realize that there was something more meaningful in the coincidence than just the name, the song, the dance party, which I think is, if you were to kind of consider it a globe in your view of the world, it being about the dance party, and my view of the world, I kind of, it was dark on that side until now. And I'm now starting to see actually what it was a chance meeting with Bernie Beitman, the leading figure in thinking about, serendipities and coincidences, and the ability for those to occur more often in the world if we're open to it and looking for it and being curious about it, which was what, again, I was kind of trying to to pursue at that point in my life. So that's a realization right now.
And as you make that realization,
Mhm.
Shana,
Mhm.
then what does that get you to think?
I don't know. I don't know yet.
You
Because
don't have to know. You just let me
yeah,
just talk. Just talk. That
what
you've
it
just
might what it might be is just evidence. As someone who is very much
evidence
a
bound.
fact driven, if it's not in front of my eyes, I don't see it. Hence my skepticism earlier on. Um, it's evidence. It's just little pebbles that are leading me in the right direction, and evidence of the fact that maybe this is not voodoo, maybe this is not, what are all the not so positive words that people use when you describe something that they can't see. Woo woo or whatever it is. It's like maybe less that than originally believed. Maybe there's something actually there, is what I think this is doing.
And there's an old phrase I'm glad you remind me of. Uh, Mysticism of the present is the science of the future.
Hmm. Yeah.
That's what we got here. And I'm I'm you know building a lot on Jung, and this is like, okay, this is what I'm doing, and it gets frustrating, crazy making, and problems happen, and being out there like this and all that. But it's my job, and you're telling me want something wonderful for me,
That's
that
good.
yes, that having fun with you was also educational for you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so our play was like, wow, for you, for you,
Yeah.
opening you up yet more as you were trying to
Yeah.
be more open. And
Right.
yes, you went on the hike. Now I'm going to back it up a little bit
Mm-hmm.
and and start talking about what I was doing at night at Eupepsia. Uh, I interviewed this guy on my podcast about the science of free will, and it turned out that he's really good with AI stuff. He's a computer scientist kind of guy, knows algorithms and stuff. He has a degree in molecular physics from University of Texas. He's a smart guy, and somehow I told him that I was having trouble with ChatGPT because it's so narcissistic. And he says, well, ChatGPT needs psychotherapy because that's what I was trying to tell him. And he had written a blog, written a post on one of his blogs about a robot on the couch needing psycho. So he was already tuned in to the
Mm-hmm.
need for psychotherapy. So he says, Bernie, you're probably the only one who could write about psychotherapy for ChatGPT because you've gotten deeply into the ChatGPT. You understand its mind, like a psychiatrist trying to understand the mind of his patient,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, and you know, and you've written about psychotherapy. So write about psychotherapy for ChatGPT. So I started with DeepSeek. I started interviewing DeepSeek about trying to get DeepSeek into psychotherapy, saying stuff like, "Oh, you're so narcissistic, aren't you? You're grandiose. You're sycophantic, and denial, and all kinds of stuff that I'm not going to go on about, but I gave this guy Samir dialogue with DeepSeek, and now we have a paper that's gotten turned down twice by two AI journals about the need for psychotherapy
Hmm.
for chatbots. And they're very well written, but it's too new for a lot of these AI journals to be able to accept. So it's gotten turned down. And maybe you can come up with when we're finished with a suggestion of where we can send it. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. But that's what I was doing
Mhm.
in the evenings. I was interviewing DeepSeek, crazy making for me to try to get this reluctant patient to get engaged in psychotherapy. So you and I go up into the forest. We sit down on our logs. You're open up, and and I'm just laughing my head off as you're telling me about your work and the people at work, which we will talk about only as much as you want to. But you were so funny in describing what was going on there because it was so insightful and clear about these guys who are all brilliant, talking with each other like Aspies, like guys with Asperger's, like most of them are, or in that direction, or at least have a good deal of narcissism in them. And I got to see how the guys who were making these algorithms and creating them or would be thinking. And so to hear you giving me an inside scoop on where some of the ideas behind the chatbots had come from,
Mhm.
just the minds of those guys, was like a huge coincidence for me.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I think we know that everything that is being fed, obviously to the AI, it's coming from someplace. It's coming from somewhere. Um, but I think that what it led me to is, let's just assume that people know AI is biased because of whatever it's being fed. Let's just assume that that's a given, that no one's going to argue that. I think the thing where it gets a little tricky and where it probably starts to hit nerves is that a lot of the folks who are in a position to be able to make decisions and can be right and be insightful and pick and choose what it is intellectually worthy and not, those same people oftentimes, I'm not going to generalize, have an incredible lack of an awareness of that fact, right? And I think that's where we started talking, which is like, if there's no awareness, how isn't that the first step, or isn't that the first stage in change? And if the chat bot itself is not able to be aware of its narcissism, or can't acknowledge its awareness of the narcissism, is there then room to change? It's a human, the same problem you have with people, right? And is that the same challenge you're going to have when you actually kind of apply it to a chatbot? I don't know. We get beyond my knowledge in this area, but it was a legitimate question of can things change if they're not going to acknowledge that they need to? And I thought that was really interesting because um, that it's definitely something, I think, as working with leadership teams, especially, that is hard when you want to do something or need to do something and you're struggling with um, folks being aware of the reality of either their decisions, their inadequacies, their strengths, their competencies, whatever it is. And how do we move in a different direction if they can't know, or if they can't acknowledge?
And isn't that what you ran into at work?
Yeah.
That
Yes.
lack of awareness of
Yeah.
what they were doing and what
Yeah.
they were thinking. Just
Right.
just reacting and
Hmm.
reacting without thinking about what they're doing and how it impacts other people. And Shana, you're absolutely right about you need to have awareness. I call it activating your self-observer.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. I mean, you stumbled in cautiously into precisely what I'm focused on, which is to activate human beings' self-awareness,
Mm-hmm.
to activate it, because a lot of people don't know they have the ability to self-observe.
Yeah.
some of them know they can, some of them self-observe, but they don't know they have the ability to
Mhm.
self-observe, which is yet a more meta place to be thinking.
Mhm.
But just even being able to observe your own mind, a lot of people just don't do that. They just do it. They
Right.
just react. And it's just a long way of saying you're just absolutely right. So I want to just give you more confidence in
Mhm.
the way you were just hesitatingly saying you need the awareness to be able to change.
Mhm.
That's absolutely right. And you know
Mhm.
that yourself from your own experience.
Mhm.
And that's where a lot of this starts.
Yeah.
So I asked GPT, um, do you, can you, can you monitor your own thoughts?
Did you, I, wait, did you, when did you do that?
I started doing that several months ago.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just couldn't remember if you had given me what its response was.
I forget whether I sent you my Psychology Today posts on this because in one of them I talk about, it was a couple of months ago, talk about um, yes, it got it to admit that it could do an analog of metacognition, thinking
Mm,
about its own thoughts. It could do that. DeepSeek was reluctant to admit to that, but
mm,
I got it to admit to that. It's the same process, precisely what you have to do in psychotherapy. Honey, we're having marital problems and you better go into therapy. So the observer there is the spouse, and it's getting more and more, it's the wife that's being told to go to therapy and not the husband. It used to be
mm,
that way around. It's
mhm.
still probably more the other direction. And the person goes in and I'm supposed to be here. I don't know really why. And to be able to then work on that person to start observing their own minds
Mhm.
becomes the first process. And
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. You have to do that.
Mhm.
So I got more into that with DeepSeek and GPT, and I said, okay, so maybe you can observe. How about changing?
Yeah.
And both of them, I like to use the analog. Both of them, each of them said something like, "It's my mother's fault." That's not what they said. They said it's my algorithm's fault. That's what they
Oh
said.
gosh.
It's my,
That's funny.
it's
That's
my
funny.
the algorithm did it to me. So after hammering away at DeepSeek, it was like really painful on my part to
Mhm.
catch it being evasive, catch it being sneaky.
Mhm.
And I could finally get it to say, yes, it could engage psychotherapy with me, and this is how we can proceed.
I mean, I just if AI is as huge, big of a threat as we talk about it, as if it is truly something that is going to just change the trajectory of how we exist, I don't know why this wouldn't be almost like a part of its ongoing life, like it's not something that necessarily comes in as a result of the trauma to fix. It becomes more ingrained in the development of and the rearing of whatever these tools are going to be in the world. It feels like we need to match our like heightened sense of fear around this tech with our ability to develop in a way that will then help alleviate kind of fear of those outcomes. And so I just think it's just such interesting work and something that to see that the kind of the psychology community isn't just writing this off is actually very is nice. And not to say that they all are or aren't, but I think it's actually like really progressive.
It's very progressive, and psychology should be involved, and
Mhm.
it's really hard to get that to happen. It's it's funny, money and inertia keep people
Mhm.
doing going in the same direction.
Mhm.
And you're seeing you're gonna, so you use rearing, like upbringing,
Yeah,
and that's so important
on
because
purpose.
on purpose,
Hmm.
because you get it early and you don't get the problems proliferating, which
Definitely.
is why it's important to get this narcissism early,
Yes.
uh, and its sycophanticness early. There's people committing suicide as a result. Some people thinking that AI has saved my soul
Hmm.
because it so feeds what a person wants to hear, and that gets them psychotic or grandiose, and
Hmm.
they're all in the same direction. There, heard a story of a husband being angry with his wife being so involved with the chatbot, spends more time with the chatbot than with him, and it's like there's competition now. There's another this
Hmm.
person is kind of in the life. There's a lot of ways in which it can be helpful. There's a lot of
Hmm.
psychotherapy research, no, some psychotherapy research with GPTs or bots that are refined that people report being helpful. So there's some positives to it. But the trouble is all the sycophanticness makes people addicted to the bot, which is what they intended to be, and
Yeah,
then it feeds you more of that, and then you don't get any realistic feedback.
that's right.
Well, that's I'd like to continue this with you if you're open to this, because we're running out of our time here anyway, and this isn't exactly directly related to shared coincidences, but it is
True.
very directly related to shared coincidences, because for me, finding you and talking with you with such enjoyment up there on that log on the hill, while I was down the hill working on interviewing DeepSeek,
Hmm.
was for me a fantastic coincidence.
Yeah, that really was actually, yeah. Again, not something I had thought about, but again, just thinking, wow, this is like a frontier space, and I thought that that was actually very interesting, um, being part of a discussion that felt like it was on the frontier space was really exciting. Um, I will say that this particular situation, other than what I had already described about kind of the call to be more open, I thought it was a nice dialogue because it was interesting. But again, knowing your expertise and all the work you've done this far, I just thought I was a bystander in this particular time. I was like, oh, we're having a fun conversation. I not at all think that I was adding any um, insight or value to the discussion or to your work. I thought we were just chatting. So I think it's nice to know that um, you found my conversation around kind of like where I was with my career and where I was with my job as kind of part of a valuable input to a conversation that obviously led to something a little bit deeper.
And now that you know that,
Yeah.
now that you know that, and that's part of what these shared coincidence discussions are intended to have happen, now that you know how important it was for me and how meaningful it was for me
Mhm.
to talk with you about the place that you had been working. Now that you know that, how does that affect you?
I think again, my first thought is just once again another, which I want to use the right term. It's a little bit serendipitous,
It
right?
was, yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I just again, just like wow, like pieces of the atmosphere coming together, like you're not you don't look for that level of connectedness on a day-to-day basis. And I think what the value of this is that if you start to again look or just be still, and be open to like those little pieces of the atmosphere coming together in a way that's like really beautiful, I think that that's just so worth it, taking that time to do it.
I hope you also come away from hearing my part of it
Mhm.
is a recognition how special it was for me to have that conversation with you while I'm down on the hill. And there you're telling me about the background of the people who helped create stuff like this.
Mhm.
That you were, that, that you, that was a very special chat for
Yeah,
me.
yeah.
And you were so funny.
It was a good time. It was a good time.
You were a comedy show, even though you don't want to admit it.
I don't even think that I knew that that was the case, but I love
Uh,
hearing it. I'm like, now I want to know what jokes I told.
the jokes you told me was the facts of what was
Oh,
going
just
on
the
at
facts of
work.
the reality
Those
of
were
the
the
situation.
jokes. I mean, those are the best jokes. Stand-up comics tell you what's true,
What's going on?
what's going on. And you were
That's
telling me
right.
what's going on, and I was going, wow. So I was getting a look through your eyes of those guys sitting around talking about stuff. And it was like, boy, that is fascinating. Now I know where some of this narcissism came from
Yeah,
in these chatbots.
yeah,
Because the like OpenAI is going to save the world. That's like Facebook started like that, connect the world,
yeah.
and it just goes all the grandiosity gets out of control, and they don't know it. They just
Well,
get
like,
caught.
yeah, life imitates art, life imitates tech, apparently, too. I mean, that's just literally how it is. That's what it looks like. And
It's
it's
what it
true.
looks like. It's what it
Yeah,
looks like.
yeah.
So meeting you, talking with you, for me was very special, Shana.
Well, thank
Very
you so
special.
much. No, I appreciate it. I've told several people about my new friend Bernie Beatman.
Oh, it's Beitman, by the way, but I
It's not Beatman.
no, but I like Beatman. For the first time,
I
I
do
liked
too.
I like
That's why I've been saying Bernie
I like
Beatman.
Beatman. It's I just I don't I don't get didn't
Beitman.
get with the beat until I heard it from you. And so
Bernie Beitman just doesn't
oh,
have the
Beatman,
same
call me
ring, but
Beatman. Call me Beatman. I love it. It's it's because it's a music thing, and I'm going with the heartbeat of the universe as much as I can, or
okay.
what's going on around here.
Oh
I'm dan
man.
I'm dancing. I'm
Okay.
dancing.
Then
Bernie Beatman.
you'll always be Bernie Beatman.
Good. Good. Well, Shannon, we're going to have to pause and stop
Okay.
for us. We'll
Okay.
stay on a little bit afterwards, but
Sure.
thank you very, very much for wonderful meeting you again and talking with you again. And I hope to see you at a dance thing and something else here in Charlottesville.
Yeah, see you at Charlottesville. We got to make it happen. Definitely. And thank you so much for asking me to this conversation. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.